Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Whoop. Check out the description below to join our team or sign up to get a free strap and an extra month's membership with our link. On today's episode, we have our sports analysts, Brian Friend, Tommy Marquez, and Patrick Clark, all here for a 2-round mock draft for the men. And then later we'll have the women in the Last Chance Qualifier. It is snake style with the person who drafts for the first for the men. They will be drafting last for the women and vice versa, leaving one analyst with the second pick for both men and women. At the time of these picks, we didn't know the programming. Now we do. As we go through this, I am curious if you guys feel like your picks should be changed. But Tommy, you got the first draft one pick. Yonakoski, tell us why.
Yes, so I will say that I will stand by my picks regardless because that's just
loyal man.
That's just how I am. The original thinking behind Yona was just the overall accomplishment and how good he has been consistently across his career. That absent of knowing programming, he has been without a doubt the most fit individual of this entire cohort across his career, and continues to be a guy that year in year out should be considered for the top 10. Now, I use the analogy that if you have a 98-mile-an-hour fastball with movement and you can place it, you don't go off speed out of the gate. So you go with what's old reliable, and you give him the frozen rope right out of the bag. And that's what that's what I was doing with Yona. I think he's incredibly skilled. I think the more skill elements, the better. I think some of the more multimodal elements, the better for him as you start to mix it up and get all these different combinations. I'm glad that there isn't necessarily a 1-rep max lift type test, as he seems to do better in moving some of the medium stuff than he is just like a flat out heavy movement. And there are some elements now looking at the programming that I think he'll do well on, even under the guise of knowing that some other athletes might beat him in this, because I think ultimately where his fitness shines is the consistency over the entire test. And this is actually my original justification for picking him, was I thought that he may not win an event. He may just pile up 3rd through 7s the entire way and end up winning out. And I actually still think that, looking at the programming, like he's going to be around the 5th or 4th in every event, pretty much, maybe a 7th on one, and went out over the long haul of the 4 tests, short long haul, I should say. But yeah, it's interesting that like my reasoning still kind of holds up unintentionally with this programming. But in general, I trust the base of fitness that Yona has built over the last 8 years.
All right, Brian, you got the second pick, and you picked Tyler CHRISTOPHEL.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler CHRISTOPHEL was as close as it gets last year. He was basically as close as it gets this year, where it came down to a matter of a 10 feet overhead lunge or something at the MAC, and he wasn't able to capitalize on that opportunity there. I think he's a super well-rounded athlete. He's got the strength. He moves pretty well on body weight type stuff. So I thought he was a pretty solid and also safe pick at the 2 spot, because I didn't think there was too much that could come out that would really eliminate him. And having seen the workouts now, I think that he still is a very solid pick. And I really do hope for his sake. I mean, it's been a tough couple of years for him, watching Bailey Rail make it through twice now, and him being so close 3 times, the semifinals, Last Chance Qualifier, and this semifinals. He's as hungry as ever. I think he's as fit as ever. And I think that he's an excellent candidate to get one of these 2 spots.
PC, last but not least, and you'll have a double pick here. Let's move to your first pick, Augustine Richelme.
Yeah, I mean, I like how the reason why I picked him is, I mean, this is a virtual competition, and he does really well in virtual competitions. And in the story that we wrote together, all 3 of us, he usually excels pretty well in like doubles, couplets, and triplets, and that's what we kind of expected that we'd see. And now that the program is out there, there's really nothing too heavy, and that's where he kind of struggles in, is top end strength. But I think I still stick with this pick. I mean, I still like him. I mean, he finished, I think, 15th in the worldwide in the quarterfinals, so he has the ability to compete with the top level athletes, and he's shown that. So I'd stick with him still, and kind of give a little bit of Argentina, another South American in the games too. I'd love to see that.
All right. What about then your second pick? We're going to snake back around PC. We stay on you. You have James Sprague.
Yeah, so everyone else kind of went like veteran heavy based on experience, and we all know James. He's just turned 20, I believe, in day one of the syndicate, and he looked good. He looked really good. He missed it by 1 point. He had two bad finishes: a 24th place in the opening event and 24th place in the final event, which ultimately knocked him out because Will Morad just went insane psycho and just crushed that event. But throughout the middle events, those 4 events, his average placing was 3.5. So he did really well, and I really like his makeup. And he's one of those guys who's done really well this year in virtual competitions, specifically the Open. He kind of took a step back in the quarterfinals, but then like now looking at the programming, what we see, he's a taller athlete, and some of these events, kind of favor taller athletes when you look at them. I mean, there's rowing, there's some wall balls. The weight's not too heavy, 225 on the clean and jerks. That's really manageable for him. The shuttle run, he does really well in the shuttle runs. Not really much in terms of gymnastics besides the what do you have? You have the muscle ups, and you also have the handstand walk-in. Those are manageable for him. So I'm sticking with that pick with James too.
All right, Brian, back to you. Alex Catoulis for your second pick. Are you standing by him?
Well, no, I'm not standing by him because
You
he's
have
not
to.
signed up for the competition,
He's
and he
not?
just competed in the French Throwdown. So I don't actually know if he's going to show up, but I'll tell you why I picked him. Alex Catoulis competed in the Last Chance Qualifier last year. I think he was 7th place, and I think there's only one guy, Tyler CHRISTOPHEL, who finished ahead of him, who was there. I thought he was really good at strength and depth. That ended up being, there was a couple of guys that surprised me there, and it was just a tough field. I felt like maybe there wasn't necessarily the top end guys. We'll see how Willie George does, but like 1 through 10, it was pretty. There were a lot of guys, in juggling positions back and forth. Alex is a really good online athlete as well, and he. He's fairly strong. I did write in the article that if a 1 rep max or a 4 rep max or something like that came out, that I would basically this would be a throwaway pick, because he would probably take a big hit as he did last year in that style of workout. There isn't one of those, but there is some heavy barbell with the 185 thrusters and the 225 clean and jerks. And I think that given the fact that he just did the French Throwdown, he's not signed up for this competition, and some of the other guys in this field, this is no longer a great pick, despite the fact that he is a super fit guy.
And Tommy, finally, to round out the picks, Tim Paulson.
Yeah, in the article I called this my ride the lightning pick because I think Tim is someone that does really well when his back's against the wall, and I use the time honored metaphor of the great Hambino, putting one into the left field bleachers when no one expected. Although I did say right field because Paulson is a lefty. That's next level research right there. But if you look at you liken this to the Granite Games last year, Tim Paulson came into the final day outside of a qualifying spot. I talked to him before then, asked him how he felt about the morning's events, and he was like, honestly, they're okay, but really I'm just going to go out there and empty the tank on both of them and see how I finish. He goes 3-1 in those 2 events. Has similar sentiment starting off the weekend with the thruster and handstand walk combination, knowing that the final event of the weekend might be his worst period. Mm-hmm. So he swung for the fences and hit another home run. And I think Paulson is really good about tapping into the mindset of like, I need a good finish here, and executing on that sense of urgency. And so I think without even knowing the programming, I was hoping that he would hit one of those home runs and feeling like he could dial one up. You look at workout 3, I think that's right up his alley. I think workout 3 is going to be one. There are some other big guys in the field that can, put a good score up there, but I think it's going to be one of his best finishes, top 3 maybe, fighting with guys like DeLugos and Sprague, where, he's going to make that rower hum as a taller, heavier guy, and he is phenomenal on his hands under fatigue, specifically when other people start to break down, partially because, as his Instagram handle says, he has T-Rex arms, so he does stack up really well, even under those fatigue states. So I think this is an opportunity for Paulson to maybe hit a home run in that event. He also does really well off the turn off your brain and just go type motor events for his size, which is what the finale is. So he could be in a scenario where he needs 2 big performances on the final day and he gets those two to sneak into a qualifying spot. So I really like Paulson. I really like the mindset that he takes, and I think he wasn't quite 100% at Granite Games, and the programming just didn't line up as well for him. But he should be in the mix.
So these draft picks were a little bit different than some of the prediction shows we had. Earlier in the season, they were all blind. In this situation, you guys had the snake draft picks. So I'm curious if this was blind, if there would have been any crossovers. Like, did anybody steal each other's picks and then you had to, choose somebody different?
Oh, Brian stole my CHRISTOPHEL pick.
Well, I would say this. I feel like completely blind, any of us would have picked Ionakoski one. At least I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think depending on like in mock drafts, you do multiple iterations and account for the different combinations that you had in your head, because you maybe had 4 to 5 athletes for 2 spots. And I think if we maybe put a list of like 5 athletes, we would have had a lot to draft from. And I think we would have had a lot of carryover there. And I think that's telling, because depending on how the draft plays out, you build a buffer in terms of athletes you'd be willing to pick. So I actually think there would be quite a few crossovers. Like I certainly considered Sprague. I considered CHRISTOPHEL as well. They're both on the list for me. But I kind of figured that after picking Koski, they wouldn't be back there available on the back side of it. So I almost kind of like wrote their name in and then like penciled it out, because I assume my constituents would do well. But I will say this. Even though the point spread looked a little bit different in our blind pick'ems throughout regional semifinals, all of us hit exactly 56 qualifiers on the nose.
Yeah.
I picked 56 right.
What are the odds of that?
Pat picked 56. Brian picked 56.
We're just that good.
So even though my even though my points didn't reflect it, I picked just as many games qualifiers as the rest of them.
There's the saving grace to Tommy saving himself.
Oh man, I'm trying.
So taking a look at everybody's picks in order just one last time, let's go through, PC, we'll start with you. Who was somebody that was on the cusp that you almost added, but ultimately decided that one of your picks was going to be better?
I really liked, after I saw what Lugos did at Granite Games, and now knowing the programming, I really like him in this setup. I mean, he's someone that might sneak in. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished second or even first. I mean, 3D's workouts look really strong for him, and he's hungry. And after seeing him, he had some missteps, not really his missteps, but we all know about the shorter bar and his feet hitting the ground and stuff like that. It might have cost him some reps here and there, but regardless, he looked good throughout the whole weekend, and he moves really well for a big guy. I mean, he's 6'2". I mean, he says, I don't know. I think he's taller than 6'2" personally, but the guy, that's someone that I would consider maybe like a wild card, or if I had to redraft, I'd probably put him in there as well.
Tommy, who did you leave off?
I mean, there were a few. Even more so, like looking at the programming now, there's like 3 or 4 guys that I'm like, man, they could have a good weekend too. Which maybe that's a testament to the skills and the variance between the workouts. But you look at, I think we all talked offline, like Luka Jukic. I think Jake Berman might be like a Ionakoski light in this scenario. Royce Dunn, I think, is another guy that people tend to overlook, but like he surprises people with his skill and his like capacity and his running. So, man, there's a handful of them that I'm like, under different circumstances, I could see them qualifying.
Brian, who was your person you left off?
So when I was making the Catullus pick, I was basically torn between picking more of a body weight style, open style athlete, and a guy that maybe would excel if the heavy barbell came out once or twice. And the guy I was leaning towards was Royce. Everyone knows how I feel about the Oceania game spots, and that they deserve more down there, both the men and the women, based on their competitive performance in the last couple of years. And these workouts are amazing for him. I mean, clean and jerks to 55 at 225. He's going to move that bar as well as anyone. He was 4th last year in the handstand walking event at the games, and he's going to be good on the rower. I think that I think the double unders are mostly negligible, but he'll be great on the wall balls. I think he actually, for a big guy, moves pretty well in the box, so he won't take a huge hit there. He's amazing at bar muscle ups, and I don't think he's going to struggle with the thruster bar the way that half this field will. So he's actually my pick to win now that I've seen the workouts.
Ooh, interesting.
I think,
Oh, PC, you're shocked face right now.
no, well, I think one thing we have to mention about the men's field, and we'll have to bring up the women's field. There's a couple athletes here that are actually competing in their semifinal, and because because of travel restrictions. And one athlete that I'm not saying I would pick him, but Dennis Samsonov, the fittest wizard. I think he might actually do pretty well, and I wouldn't be surprised if he might sneak in there. So that's someone to keep an eye on, and he's fresh. Just 4 workouts, and he does well in online competition. So who knows?
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time for our women's draft.